So I'm working on a Volkswagen O&M transmission, 4-speed automatic, out of a 2000 Jetta GLS VR6. VR6 isn't much different from the other ones, besides having some different 3/4 clutches and frictions and steels, and a few different valve body parts, but it all depends on the year also. Anyway, this is the forward drum. A lot of people online are talking about how to get this apart. Typically people will get this out. They'll get the 3/4 drum out of here and clutches and steels. Then they'll get the snap ring, piston, and return spring for that piston out of here, but then they get stuck. There is a snap ring that's in here that you can just barely pull out, wiggle its way up with a bunch of picks or flathead screwdrivers if that's all you have, and then you can just sneak it out. But the hardest part is trying to figure out how to get this drum separated from this shaft, which this shaft is part of this drum. This is completely separate. It's connected in there by frictions and steels, and then this drum is splined to this shaft, which you can see down in there. The hardest part was trying to figure out how to get it apart, and the reason it's tough is because the splines just get worn into that position, or they were just pressed in from the factory, blah 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 blah. Anyway, the goal here is to get even pressure on this. You don't want to just put this on your press and then just have two resting places there and push down here, because you could potentially warp your drum, which I'm pretty sure all these parts are hardened steel. So working with hardened steel, if you warp it, you're pretty much you're done for as far as warping a hardened steel object. Anyway, I figured out that the rear rotor on these Volkswagens is actually just the right diameter for this drum. So you can rest this surface here on this. So if you have an old rotor, you can get the rust scale out of here and set this in there. Now this rotor is like 5 1/8 inches in diameter, and it fits just perfectly in there for it to be pressed out. Now the only thing is that there comes a point where this is going to hit that, so you can use this to start the drum off of the shaft, and then from there you can just put this on your usual 2 pieces of metal, or maybe you have something that's just a little bit angled that gets a little bit more support on it, and then press it out the rest of the way. The hardest part though is getting the initial press, and that's what this can be used for. So I'm at my press here. One thing to keep in mind is that the this protruding piece of metal here that rides on the bushing of the 3/4 drum, it's going to hit, so you're going to need a hole there so that this can actually slide through it. But just to give you an example of what I just did, I set that in there, and as you can see, it's resting right on this edge. If you need to, I had to get a little bit more distance here, so I put a socket on here and then press this down, and I just got a little bit more play out of it. And now I'm going to just press it from the 2 sides, and it'll fall right off. And because the shop is a complete mess right now, I could not find my usual metal pressing pieces, so I used a truck drum from a Chevy 2500, 2 pieces of steel, rested it on this surface, and then just pressed it down the rest of the way with that. What's surprising is that I'm taking this out, and I noticed that my bushings or plastic, yeah, the plastic bushings here are actually still there. They didn't blow up or anything like that, which is really surprising because this has 140,000 miles on it, and I had a lot of other problems with it, but those are still there. But yeah, I'm replacing the whole clutches and seals, so I had to get to that, and obviously there's these scarf cut seals, which you can get to, or not scarf cut seals, but interlocking seals. And then an O-ring down here. This clutch actually looks pretty surprisingly good compared to everything else I've seen. And then obviously there is there's a snap ring right here you're going to have to get, but there's a return spring under here, so you're going to have to press down here. You have to press down here, take your snap ring off, then let it come up. And then, yeah, obviously, if you're going to do bushings, don't forget your bushings as well.